They called him the strongest man who ever lived, a man chosen before birth, a man whose power came not from muscle, but from a vow, a promise to God. But power can be a dangerous gift, because even the strongest man can fall, not by the strength of his enemies, but by the weakness within his own heart. This is the story of Samson, the man who had it all and lost everything, and how, in the end, even broken, blinded, and betrayed, he found redemption. Our story begins in a time of oppression. The people of Israel lived under the heavy hand of the Philistines, a cruel and powerful nation that ruled them for 40 long years. Fear filled the land. Homes were quiet. The people prayed for deliverance, but heaven seemed silent. Then, a miracle. An angel of the Lord appeared to a barren woman, radiant, terrifying, magnificent. He told her she would bear a son, but this would not be an ordinary child. He would be a Nazirite, set apart for God from birth. No wine, no contact with the dead, and his hair must never be cut. For as long as his hair remained uncut, his strength would flow from God himself. This child would begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. And so, the boy was born. His name was Samson, meaning sunlight. From his earliest days, the Spirit of God stirred within him. He grew strong, fearless, unstoppable. As Samson became a man, his strength became legendary. He could tear a lion apart with his bare hands. He could face entire armies and walk away untouched. His enemies feared him. His people admired him. But inside, Samson wrestled with himself. He was strong on the outside, but weak in discipline. He often followed his desires more than his purpose. One day, he saw a Philistine woman and demanded her as his wife. His choice angered his people, but Samson would not be told no. The wedding became chaos, and the Philistines soon learned that this man was no ordinary enemy. He burned their fields, struck down their soldiers, and defied their kings. Each victory made him bolder, prouder, more reckless. He thought his strength made him untouchable. For 20 years, Samson judged Israel. He was feared, respected, powerful. He had been given everything necessary to be the deliverer his people needed. But Samson's greatest battles weren't with the Philistines. They were within himself. Then came Delilah. Samson fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek named Delilah, and the Philistine rulers saw their opportunity. They came to her with an offer impossible to refuse: 1,100 pieces of silver from each ruler if she could discover the secret of Samson's strength. 3 times, Samson lied to her. 3 times, she tested him with fresh bowstrings, new ropes, and woven hair. 3 times, Philistine soldiers waited in her room, ready to capture him. 3 times, Samson broke free effortlessly, as if their attempts were nothing more than a game. But Delilah was persistent. Day after day, she nagged him, pressed him, wore him down with her words. "How can you say you love me when you won't confide in me?" she accused. The scripture tells us that she pressed him daily with her words until his soul was vexed to death. And finally, tragically, Samson broke. "No razor has ever touched my head," he confessed, "because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." Delilah knew. This time, he had told her the truth. She sent word to the Philistine rulers, who came with the silver in their hands. That night, while Samson slept with his head in her lap, she called a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. Then, she began to rouse him, to subdue him. When he woke, the Philistines were upon him. He tried to fight, but he was powerless. They captured him, gouged out his eyes, and took him to Gaza. The mighty Samson, the hero of Israel, became a blind slave, grinding grain for his enemies. In the darkness of that prison, Samson finally saw what he had never seen before. His strength had never been his own. It had always come from God. Day after day, he turned the grinding stone, and slowly, his hair began to grow again. With it, his faith began to return. One day, the Philistines held a great celebration in honor of their god, Dagon. They brought Samson out to entertain them, to mock the man who once terrified them. Thousands filled the temple, laughing at his fall. But Samson whispered a final prayer. "Lord, remember me. Give me strength one last time." He placed his hands on the great pillars that held the temple. He pushed. At first, nothing. Then, a tremor. The stone began to crack. The ground shook. With one final surge of strength, Samson brought the entire temple crashing down. The rulers, the crowd, the laughter, all buried in a moment of silence. The strongest man who ever lived was brought down not by enemy armies, but by his own unchecked desires, and in the end, it took losing everything, his strength, his sight, his freedom, before he finally became who he was meant to be. The question is, what will it take for us? Samson's story is a warning and an invitation. A warning that talent without character leads to tragedy. An invitation to live for something greater than our own desires, to guard what's sacred, to fulfill the purpose we've been given before it's too late. In his final moments, blind and alone, Samson finally became the deliverer he was always meant to be. But the cost was everything. His story echoes through the centuries, asking each generation the same question. Will we learn from his mistakes, or will we have to make them ourselves? The choice, as it always has been, is our